Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Tuesday, the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Look, we're going to spend more time on college football today. We closed out the show with college football yesterday, talking, of course, about, look, Indiana last year was a feel-good story. You know, they had that Cinderella March Madness type feel to them. You never really felt like they were a true national championship contender, but by golly, it was cool seeing the mid-major caliber team, advance to that Sweet 16 Elite 8 level line, right? That's basically what we saw with Indiana last year. That's maybe not necessarily the case this year. Indiana may not be that sweet mid-major type of vibe and team as the college football when the college football playoff arrives this year. This team might be a legitimate top 5 team, to where last year it was like they were undefeated 3 months into the season. You had to do something with them. What do? You can't just keep them out of the top 5 when they're undefeated. But they had a win over Michigan. They had, obviously a lot of wins in the Big Ten before their matchup with Ohio State, which set up that top 5 matchup. But man, oh man, Indiana just might be, maybe not for real as in a favorite to win a national championship, but might be real as in a legit contender to go out there and compete with the best teams in the country. We saw it. They just beat the number 3 team in the country, Oregon, by double digits on the road this past weekend. So we'll get back into more of that coming up in a moment. I had Buckeye fans mad at me yesterday. I had multiple Buckeye fans message on the Facebook page saying that the fact that I made them agree with Shaw pissed them off. So Shaw, who says, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, already in the chat right there, just waiting to pounce once again. But the bottom line is, of course, Buckeye fans think that I hate the Buckeyes once again. So it is that time of year. And no, I do not hate the Buckeyes. But I do want to open up with football talk, but it's going to be on the Cincinnati Bengals side. We'll get to some college football coming up here in just a moment. The Cincinnati Bengals are in a very, very weird spot because there's so many teams who are mathematically still in the playoff conversation, but realistically, are they? As I talked about, the Cincinnati Bengals are 2-4. All right. You have the Denver Broncos who are 4-2 in that final playoff spot in the AFC. But as we've talked about the last couple of days and even in the last week, there are teams who are currently right now in the playoff picture that I don't really know who they are yet. Denver's 4-2. I know who they were supposed to be, but I also know what they've looked like, but I also see their record, so they're very confusing. Buffalo, I thought, was the best team in the AFC. They started out 4-0, but they've lost back-to-back. I know what they're supposed to be. I know what they look like to start, but I know what they've looked like the last 2 weeks. I don't know what to make of them. The Patriots are 4-2. I need to see more from them. Drake May has looked pretty dang good, right? And obviously, Mike Vrabel's done a good job of turning that franchise around since becoming the head coach there after all the success that he had in Tennessee. So good for him. But the Patriots, I need to see more. Somebody has to win that division, and if the Bills aren't as good as we thought, it very well could be the Patriots to put it into that Bills run. The Chargers are super beat up. I think they're for real. They're 4-2, even with all the injuries. So as they get more and healthy as the season goes on, as they get their offensive line piece back together, that run game gets better. They get Quentin Johnson and some of their pass catchers back. Yes, Quentin Johnson, who I had checked out on early in his career, especially with how bad his rookie season was. He's been pretty solid when he's been healthy and out there as of late. We'll see if he can get healthy and stay out there. The Steelers, I think we'll find out on Thursday, even with the win over a bad Bengals team, if they're for real or not. So they're able to sustain this and keep it going. They're very good at getting out to these hot starts, but being able to sustain it has been their problem throughout the Mike Tomlin run over the last 10 years. We'll see if they can keep that going. And then the question mark about the Colts as we sit here right now. I don't know what to make of the Colts. I mean, we said it yesterday. They have a lot of the Vikings feel from last year, where they're kind of catching everybody by surprise. It's a feel-good story watching Daniel Jones, who everyone had kind of cast off to the side. He got that $40 million contract with the Giants, which I thought was a massive overpay. And based on his performance in New York, it definitely was a massive overpay. But he looks like a quarterback so far, 6 games into the season. The Colts are 5-1. He looks like a $40 million quarterback. He looks better than a $40 million quarterback as we currently sit here right now. You have Daniel Jones, who's already thrown for 1,500 yards. He's already thrown 8 touchdowns. All right. You have Jonathan Taylor, who's already 6 games into the season, averaging 100+ yards a game, 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. We have Daniel Jones, who's thrown for 8 touchdowns, and Jonathan Taylor, who's rushed for 7 touchdowns. The Colts, I think, are very much for real right now, and I am going to start to buy into them. I love Tyler Warren, the rookie tight end. That was a huge get for them in the draft. But man, oh man, they stuck to their guns. They didn't move on from Jonathan Taylor like a lot of people wanted them to kind of reload on some draft picks to kind of start this thing over. But they took a chance on Daniel Jones, sticking with him or choosing to go with him over Anthony Richardson. Tyler Warren's been great. Got a great pass-catching tight end. You obviously have Jonathan Taylor to kind of carry the rushing load. Daniel Jones has been phenomenal. But yeah, Tyler Warren, the team's leading pass catcher, the team's leading receiver at this point. Michael Pittman Jr., 293 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season, the leading touchdown scorer for the team as far as wide receivers go. So I say all of this to get to the point about the Cincinnati Bengals. Who are they? Are they for real? How much more do we have to see? Because the sand in the hourglass is starting to wind down a little bit, starting to run out of time. And what I mean by that is the trade deadline coming up. It's not like you're eliminated from the playoffs in week 8, but week 8 is the last week with the trade deadline. We're already heading into week 7. There's 2 more weeks. I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals this Thursday night are playing for the future of Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati. Think about this. All the drama that the Bengals had to face with Trey Hendrickson in the offseason, the last 2 off seasons. They went through all that drama. They went through all of that mess just to get 6 weeks into the season and literally consider trading him. Seen a lot of rumors, trade rumors, and reports out there that the San Francisco 49ers are kicking the tires on a Trey Hendrickson trade. And a lot of teams out there are kicking the tires on a potential trade for Trey Hendrickson. Look, the Bengals have no intentions of extending him past this season. I've said it before. I'm not an anti-Trey Hendrickson guy. I just didn't think he had a lot of leverage. They have been one of the worst defenses in the NFL with him. And you could say, well, how bad will they be without him? They'll still be one of the worst defenses in the NFL without him. So if that 30 to 35 to 40 mil a year that he's going to pursue just gets you a really talented defensive player on a bad defense, when you could use that 40 mil a year to maybe bring in 2 or 3 good defensive players, I think you got to start looking that route. I think you got to literally start considering that. And at the same time, you're not going to plug all of your holes through free agency. You have to hit in the draft. At some point, these draft picks have to hit for Cincinnati. So you look at this Trey Hendrickson deal, I think it would be malpractice for a team that has so many holes, for a team that has so many needs. You have so many needs on your offensive line. You need a spark in your run game. You need a run game, right? You need a defense. This team can't run. They can't block. They can't defend. They have so many holes that they have to try to plug in the draft and free agency, and they don't draft well. And they don't spend a lot in free agency, so something's got to give. It would be malpractice to me for the Cincinnati Bengals to be sitting on something as valuable as Trey Hendrickson. If they lose on Thursday night, I think they need to be – I think everyone that needs a pass rusher needs to be on the phone with the Cincinnati Bengals starting now and be prepared to make the best offer come Thursday night if they lose to the Steelers. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I keep Trey Hendrickson through Thursday, obviously. But if the Bengals lose on Thursday night, I think Trey Hendrickson's time in Cincinnati needs to be done. I think it needs to come to an end. And I think it would be beneficial to him to send him to a contender, and it would be beneficial to the Bengals to get the trade haul that they would get back in return. Now, it will not be as impressive as a trade haul as you would imagine. I think because the fact that he doesn't have team control, whoever acquires him, it would have to be a team that you would think would want to extend him in some capacity. If the Dallas Cowboys were in a better position over in Dallas, it would be interesting to see, if they, would kick the tires on this. But the Cowboys right now are 2-3. All right. They're 2 games back of a final playoff spot, but because of how bad that defense is, they're almost the NFC version of the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys and Bengals are the same team. The Bengals and Cowboys both have the Cowboys have a very, very good quarterback. The Bengals have an elite one. But both teams have elite wide receivers. They get excellent production out of their quarterback, and their defenses stink. and they score a lot of points, they give up a lot of points, and they lose because of it. The Dallas Cowboys are the NFC version of the Cincinnati Bengals at this point. So trading him, Trey Hendrickson, to Dallas giving up anything of value wouldn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense because you would just still be the Cincinnati Bengals. It wouldn't make sense for Dallas to do that. San Francisco's a team that's being thrown out there. Maybe the Falcons look at it, the Rams. Detroit's been linked to Trey Hendrickson in the past. Maybe Seattle gets in on this as well. Who knows? But the bottom line is, if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it would be a horrible roster decision to keep Trey Hendrickson on this roster past Thursday. And I don't really mean like come Friday, it's a bad decision if he's still on the roster. But if they lose Thursday night, I think they're fortunate that they do play on Thursday night to get a head start heading into the weekend on looking to move Trey Hendrickson. You play Sunday afternoon. You're a couple days later, that's less time to get. I think you get to kind of look around the league a little bit, see what's out there, get on the phones, take your time, and get the best deal possible for Trey Hendrickson. But if they win, maybe you can push it back a little bit. Maybe you make a decision a little bit later. But I am curious, Bengals fans, 937-518-1410. We're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. Bengals fans, if Cincinnati loses on Thursday night, do the Bengals need to trade Trey Hendrickson? I say they do. I didn't mind. I had a problem with how they went about the Trey Hendrickson thing. I'd have respected them more if they would not have increased his money. He signed the extension. He should have just dealt with it because he knew he was overplaying his contract and still accepted a lower paying deal. That's on him, but that's besides the point. The Bengals got it done. They spent the money because they felt they had to go all out to try one more run with this group. Because you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, you have to give this team a chance, right? So they did it. But Joe Burrow's out for the season. This team's probably going to be 2-5 after Thursday. I think they beat Pittsburgh, but probably going to be 2-5 after Thursday. They need to trade Trey Hendrickson. What say you? 937-518-1410. The hotline's open to you. We'll take your calls when we come back. Should the Cincinnati Bengals trade Trey Hendrickson if they lose Thursday night? We'll get to all of that when we come back. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.
ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. Coming up on Thursday, 8:15 is the kickoff time between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cincinnati at home, Pittsburgh a 5.5-point favorite on the road. Pittsburgh 4-1 on the year, sitting atop the AFC North. And honestly, if they do beat Cincinnati on Thursday with the Ravens only having one win on the season at this point, I mean, it would take a lot for the Steelers to not win this division at this point. But we also know that things can get really chaotic down the stretch because the Ravens are going to get healthier, and the Steelers always seem to cave and plummet as the season progresses. So we'll see with a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, if he still has enough in the tank, and I'd say he does. I mean, already almost 1,100 yards, 10 touchdowns on the season, 5 games in. I think the veteran quarterback has been more than a stable force for that team. I just hate that it's Aaron Rodgers that's the quarterback in Pittsburgh because I can't stand Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm a Bengals fan on Thursday night. I'm going for the Bengals. I'm all about the Bengals winning this one coming up on Thursday as far as that's concerned. But the crazy part is you're starting to see and hear a lot of segments across national shows and others about trade deadline targets for a lot of teams, and it's been interesting hearing how much Trey Hendrickson's name is getting brought up. The thing is, logic would tell you that Trey Hendrickson should be moved at the deadline if the Bengals are completely out of it. They're 2 games out of a playoff spot as we sit here right now, 6 weeks in. After their matchup on Thursday night, we'll be 7 games in and a little over a week from the trade deadline. If you lose Thursday, that's another gap, another game that separates you between them. I mean, it's 4 games back of the division. You'll be 3 games back of a final wild card spot. And if you're not going to be able to beat Pittsburgh, who doesn't have a great offensive line, who can't really run the football, whose defense isn't very good, if you can't beat a team like that after going to get Joe Flacco, this team's not really going to do much down the stretch. So it would be silly to sit on Trey Hendrickson. You have a piece that can get you a little bit of depth in the middle of the draft. Is he going to get you a first rounder? No. Is he going to get you maybe a second? Possibly. I mean, to get multiple picks in the top 3 rounds, I think is a big perk for the Cincinnati Bengals if they could pull that off. And I think that knowing that you're going nowhere in the second half, to just sit on the Trey Hendrickson contract and just him in general and not get something back in return would be kind of malpractice a little bit as far as I'm concerned. I think it would be absolutely ridiculous to sit on that and not get something back at the end of the day. Now, and that has to be Cincinnati being strategic. The problem is they don't have a real front office. They have a makeshift front office. You have a guy that pretends to be a general manager. You have a woman who only likes to talk to the media if they're announcing a contract signing, but disappears when it comes to questioning why this organization is so embarrassingly bad at everything else. She never has anything to say there. She's a bully to the players behind the scenes in these contract negotiations, players who deserve to be paid, players who deserve the money. She does everything in her power to make it a living hell, as opposed to looking at it as a luxury for her and her organization to have the opportunity to pay a Joe Burrow or a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins, almost making it look like they are having to audition for them to get the money that they've already auditioned for by performing the way that they do it on the field. Katie Blackburn drives me crazy. Duke Tobin is just a goofball, in my opinion. I mean, I lost our respect for him, and you guys love this line because you agreed with him. You wanted him to keep your guys, but I thought Duke Tobin was a clown the second that he actually uttered the words, "It's not my responsibility to make your team better." Yes, but it is your responsibility to make your team better. And ever since getting to the Super Bowl 3 years ago, Duke Tobin has failed in every facet of improving this team. There is not one area of this team that is better today than what it was the year that they went to the Super Bowl. All right. The passing numbers are just naturally going to get better through Joe Burrow getting better. I mean, that was year 2 of Joe Burrow that when he led them to the Super Bowl. That was year 1 of Jamar Chase. So those guys getting better, that has nothing to do with anything that Duke Tobin or Zach Taylor have done. That's just guys who are just in the league longer, more experienced. The game slows down, that type of thing. There is not one thing that this team has gotten better at since they went to the Super Bowl 3 years ago. They are a worse running team than when they went to the Super Bowl that year. Their defense is significantly worse than when they went to the Super Bowl that year. The offensive line, now that's the one area of slight improvement, but it's kind of hard to, it's kind of hard to get worse than that season when you allowed your quarterback to get sacked 70 freaking times. This team is worse in every level possible because they have a makeshift front office it's fake. They don't have a real GM. They have the least amount of scouts in the NFL. It's just a clown show. And then we wonder why this team has the problems that it does. And then, so I say that because now they've put themselves in a position where they have so many holes that they have to try to fill next offseason and probably the offseason after that because they didn't do a damn thing this past offseason. So you need as many draft picks as you could possibly get. So risking not getting more in return for Trey Hendrickson by being stubborn and sitting on him because, well, you wanted to be here, you're going to be here, dang it. I said before, I almost feel like the front office, like it's, I'm glad they went out and got Joe Flacco to show a little bit of effort. They went out and got Joe Flacco to show a little bit of effort. But at times it feels like they were kind of just sitting there like, all right, well, you guys wanted this. Our defense could be better, but you guys needed a second number one wide receiver. You guys could have had this, but we needed to pay $40 million to Jamar Chase. Oh, you guys wanted this, but we wanted a better defense, but Joe Burrow needed to take every single dime that was available to him, right? Like it almost felt like the front office sat there and said, well, this is what you guys wanted. This is what you're getting. The Bengals need to trade Trey Hendrickson if they lose on Thursday night. Blake Longfellow, he's tuning in on the Facebook page. He says, I would trade him and Wilson. You would trade him and Logan Wilson, it sounds like. And who else am I missing? Who else would you put on that trade meter? When you're at that defense, it sounds crazy moving on from Logan Wilson, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where that defense is so bad. I don't think anyone's untouchable. I think you have to strip this down to the studs. I think you have to really look at this and try to make a decision on what's best for the future of the organization. And I think right now anyone should be on that trade block as far as that's concerned. The problem is I don't think there's a whole lot of guys with value. Like Logan Wilson's okay. I think they get something for him. I don't think he's great though. Trey Hendrickson is your best bet to get any kind of quality return. But because, you don't have team control of him past this season, there's not a whole lot of value there either. So you're basically just giving up a rent. You're trying to send your rental to be a rental somewhere else, unless one of those teams wants to give Trey Hendrickson that extension. Ron Howard says, if the Browns wanted to improve, Ron, we're not talking about the Browns right now. We'll get to my embarrassing Browns in a moment. We're talking about the Bengals. Stay focused. I struggle staying focused. You stay focused, nonetheless. But if the Bengals lose on Thursday, which they are a 5.5-point dog at home, they would be 2-5. The Steelers would improve to 5-1. They would have a commanding lead on the AFC North, and we're not even at the halfway point, which is wild. And the Bengals would be 3 games out of a playoff spot. With these games coming up ahead, after they play the Steelers, they'll have the Jets and the Bears and the Steelers again. The Patriots look legitimate. All right. The Ravens will be healthy by then. They'll be at Buffalo. You'll get the Ravens once again. I'm trying to figure out where these wins are going to come from as they sit here at 2-4. I think they have a good chance to beat Pittsburgh on Thursday because I think this is going to be the last spirited effort by this team. I think the Bengals season could get ugly after Thursday if they don't find a way to win. If they don't find a way to win on Thursday, I think it goes back to looking like it did against the Vikings, Broncos, and Lions, where this team just came out lifeless. I think they came out more spirited and they came out with more fight on Sunday at Green Bay because they went out and got Joe Flacco. And it just felt like, okay, we're not as good without Burrow, but we got a quarterback now. Let's go see if we can maneuver and salvage some of this season. And I felt that fight. I felt that urgency. I felt that intensity from the Bengals this past Sunday. That same intensity is going to be there Thursday night. They're going to come out and they're going to fight, and it's going to be a close one. I don't think they get blown out. I think, if they lose, it'll be a close one, but they're going to have a chance to win this game on Thursday. If they lose this game on Thursday, now you're in danger of potentially being the team to give the Jets their first win of the season on October 26th. That would be the concern. 10 days between Thursday and your next game. My concern would be that morale would be so low for this Bengals team that they will go right back to playing with that same lethargic effort that they did against the Vikings, Broncos, and Lions before they got Joe Flacco against the Packers. They lose, and they're 2-6. That's it. They're folding up the tent, and it's just going to be a very bumpy ride the rest of the way. This Thursday, if they win, doesn't guarantee they're making the playoffs. But they win Thursday, they keep the season alive, they extend it a bit, you keep Trey Hendrickson, and you continue to battle because I'm not convinced about any of the teams competing for those final couple wild card spots. I'm not sold on any of those teams yet. I'm not sold on any of them yet. But you lose again, that's going to make it pretty dang difficult to compete the rest of the way. You'll have to trade Trey Hendrickson at that point. Treg says, all said the AFC North is wildly terrible by injuries, but the division leader at the end of the year could be interesting. I mean, like right now, the Ravens, the problem is the Ravens could end up returning to playing some really good football. The Ravens could just end up looking like what the Bengals have looked like the last year, where they got out to such a slow start, but ended up looking like one of the best teams in football by the end. I could see the Ravens turning it around, but the problem is they're running out of time. The Baltimore Ravens, as we sit here right now, they're right there at the bottom with the Dolphins, the Browns, the Titans, and the Jets as one or no win teams right now. Baltimore, if they do get Lamar Jackson back soon, they have a bye week this week. It sets up a must win against the Bears on October 26th. But they lose that game against the Bears. Now you're 1-6. That season's over, and they have no shot at that point. So we'll see. But the Steelers, I also don't trust down the stretch, as we've talked about. So nonetheless. All right. Justin Kenner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We'll continue on with some NFL talk down the stretch here as we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, the Bengals, their season's on the line, and I fear a loss on Thursday could allow things to spiral back out of control either way. All right, we'll step away for a few moments. Let's get back into the college football conversation that we had to close out yesterday's show. Ohio State's the number one team in the country, but if the playoff poll came out today, based on how we know these polls are put together, it's not about the best team, it's about the best resume. How confident are you that Ohio State would actually have a better resume than Indiana? That's the question we'll discuss when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show. More when we return. secret.com. Results may vary.
When you listen to The Rich Eisen Show and The Justin Kinner Show, you'll have a shot to win $2,000. Be listening for the winning keywords twice an hour between noon and 5 p.m. Enter the winning words at wingam.com. I guess you could say it pays to listen to The Rich Eisen Show and The Justin Kinner Show, weekdays from noon to 5 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We are back live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, live on ESPN Dayton's YouTube channel, and, of course, hanging out with you here live on 1410 Wing AM, Dayton's ESPN Radio right here. Okay, so as you just heard, twice an hour every day between the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show, keywords are given out throughout those hours for your chance to win $2,000. So head to wingam.com right now and enter the winning word costume. COSTUME. Enter the winning word costume at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. We'll give out two more words coming up here in the 4 and 5 o'clock hour, or in the 4 o'clock hour, to give you a chance to win $2,000. We'll be doing that all week long to close out the week. So be listening twice an hour throughout the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show. You'll enter the winning word at wingam.com. You'll see it right there on the homepage, wingam.com, and enter the winning word costume for your chance to win $2,000. Head there now. Go enter that now, as far as that goes. During the break, Dave Fraley messaged into the show saying, Kinner, you are wrong. I'm used to being told that. Kinner, you are wrong. They need to start trying to move Hendrickson right now. This season is a dumpster fire. Tobin, who is actually the GM, needs to go now also. As far as that goes. And I understand that thinking too. But I think that as long as the Bengals are mathematically in the hunt, and not just mathematically in the hunt, but like they win Thursday night, you beat a team that's 4-1, sitting atop the division. The Bengals front office will then calculate that, or at least look at that and say, well, we got obviously Joe Flacco. We didn't beat Green Bay, but man, we looked like right there. We were right there with Green Bay after getting a more stable quarterback. Maybe we do have something we could work with here. The bottom of the AFC is very messy. There's nothing that is, locked in right there. I could see them giving this a little bit more time. I could see them not moving on from Trey Hendrickson. Then there's the Bengals fans like Dave, who is saying it doesn't matter. This season's a dumpster fire. They need to move on from Hendrickson right now. That's the pulse that I'm trying to get from you Bengals fans, is what is the right move? If they win Thursday and move on from Hendrickson, I'm going to be on the side of Bengals fans who are upset with the move. If they lose on Thursday and don't trade Hendrickson, I'm going to be on the side of the Bengals fans who are upset with that approach as well. The one factor I have not considered is the one that Dave Fraley just brought up on the Facebook page. What if the Bengals win Thursday night, improve to 3-4, and still end up trading Trey Hendrickson next week? What will the reaction to that be? I still would find it warranted and justified. I think that, the only way you keep him is if you think you have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Guys, this team isn't winning a Super Bowl. So I would understand the front office's approach to say, let's move on from him. But, it's like you're not making the playoffs without him. And you could say, well, there's no way in hell you're making it with him. I get that. But moving on from your only elite player on that side of the ball while you're still mathematically in the hunt is a little worrisome to me. They lose Thursday, I have no problem with it. I think that it needs to happen. They lose Thursday, Trey Hendrickson should not play another game in Cincinnati after Thursday night if they lose. But there's a good chance that they could win Thursday and still move on from them either way. Either way. So Ron Howard says wild cards will come from the AFC West and the AFC East. I mean, this very well could be a year, in a stretch where we are so used to seeing multiple AFC North teams make the playoffs. This could be a year where it's only one. It could be a season where we only get one team out of the AFC North to get to the postseason, and that'll be the division winner. Because if Cincinnati loses on Thursday, that would put them at 2-5. All right, the Browns have the Dolphins coming up. Let's say they win. They're also 2-5. And, let's say Baltimore gets a win. They're not going to win this weekend because they have a bye week, but let's say they beat Chicago coming out. Now you have second, third, and fourth place in that division all at 2-5. I don't think any of those teams are making the postseason at that point. I don't think any of them are making the postseason at that point, especially if you have three teams in the North who are all 2-5. 7 weeks in, and the division leader is the Steelers at 5-1. Yeah, and they have a bye week coming up, around the corner as well. I don't see anyone else outside of the Steelers making the postseason at that point. And even if another team does make the postseason, that means someone came roaring back to surpass the Steelers, and that means the Steelers cooled off enough to miss the playoffs. So, yeah, Ron, I don't see the North putting more than one team into the postseason with the way things have transpired just 6-7 weeks into the year, no doubt about it. So, we shall see. But yeah, we'll continue on with this conversation when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals real quick. I want to start the hour. We'll start the 4:00 hour with the college football conversation. I'm sorry. We're going to push that back just a bit. There's still 13 minutes left in this hour, so make sure you head to wingam.com, enter the word costume for your chance to win $2,000, by the way. Again, the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show, every hour you'll have multiple chances to win $2,000, so be listening for those words. Costume is the word you're going to enter right now. Let's stay in the NFL quick. A lot of weird things happening around the NFL. I mean, really, college football and the NFL. Coaches, this is that boiling point where coaches are starting to lose their jobs now. I'm not a huge fan of coaches losing their job in the middle of a season, but sometimes it's needed. Callahan, the former offensive coordinator of the Bengals, who left to take the Titans job, is no longer the Titans head coach. He was fired. So the Titans, who have been just a train wreck as well, could never really get it going. I mean, they obviously drafted Cam Ward, who has showed a lot of promise, actually. He looks very solid for a rookie, but the Titans are 1-5, and it's just getting worse and worse by the week. They lose to the Raiders 20-10. They lost a close one the game before that, 22-21, at the Cardinals, but get shut out by the Texans, blown out by the Colts, blown out by the Rams, and lose 20-12 week 1 against the Denver Broncos. So the 1-5 start, not ideal. And the Titans will now be looking for their next head coach to come in to help mold Cam Ward and hopefully turn him around. Look, they were talking a lot about all these quarterbacks who have been drafted and having their head coach fired in the first year that they're there. You look at the fact that Cam Ward, as a rookie, already they're moving on from his head coach. And people criticizing the organization, saying that just stunts the growth of these young quarterbacks when this is constantly happening. We've seen it happen to other rookie quarterbacks who have had their head coach fired and taken away, right away in the middle of their rookie season. We saw it happen, of course, with Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, right? Trevor Lawrence as a rookie back in 2021, Urban Meyer fired, 2 months into the season. Bryce Young in 2023, with Frank Reich over in Carolina, he has his head coach fired at the beginning of the season. Caleb Williams last year, number 1 overall pick, having his head coach fired. Cam Ward now with Brian Callahan being fired, added to that list. For the last 5 years, the number 1 overall pick that is quarterback ends up having his head coach fired in the middle of a season. And then we wonder why these guys have their growth stunted in the NFL. While we're here, I do want to pick up with this. I want to focus on this real quick. Okay. I got ripped for a take I had last year before about the NFL draft. I'm not a fan of rewarding losing. I hate the fact that, we're watching a very bad Bengals team and a very bad Browns team, and yet somehow, some way, it's going to pay to be bad. The Browns, who have made just so many horrific front office decisions over the last couple of years, they're going to be rewarded for it with a super high draft pick, and they have 2 draft picks this upcoming draft. The Bengals are going to be rewarded for their horrendous play this season with the top draft pick. That's great for Bengals and Browns fans, and I'm going to enjoy that. But at the same time, I think it's absolutely insanely ridiculous to reward losers. I don't think you should be rewarded for not doing your job. A front office should not do a horrible job and be rewarded for it by being given a good player. Teams who don't go out there and attempt to win, try to win, perform to win, teams who quit on their coaches, teams who just quit in general, they should not be rewarded with the top players coming out of the draft. It drives me up the wall. I think it's the only thing in life where you are incentivized by being bad at your job. Hey, if you're really bad at your job, we'll give you a really good player. How stupid is that? My boss says, hey, Kinner, if you're really bad at your job, we're going to fire your ass. Like that's how life works. Sports are stupid sometimes. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to reward you for being bad at your job. And then the teams that compete for the playoffs and the teams that fight for the playoffs and continue to fight 17 weeks of the season, yeah, you know what? Thanks for playing, but we're going to give you worse players. You tried to win. For instance, the Cincinnati Bengals last year. We know how bad that defense was. We know how bad they couldn't run the football. We know how many close games they lost. But you know what? The Bengals did themselves and you a disservice last year by trying to win. The Bengals went 9-8, and they got rewarded for it with the 17th freaking pick in the draft. The Bengals were the first team to miss the playoffs, right? So if you look at how those standings worked out, the Bengals were the first team to miss the playoffs. They were that last team out, if that's how if you want to use the March Madness terms and all this stuff, college football playoff, all that. The Bengals should have been rewarded with the number 1 draft pick, in my opinion, because that team was not good. They had deficiencies. They had flaws. They had every reason to just pack it up and quit. But they kept fighting. They did a disservice to themselves by winning 9 games and missing the playoffs because they got the 17th pick as opposed to a top 5 pick. Can you imagine Abdul Carter in Cincinnati? Can you imagine going to get getting basically the pick of any of those defensive weapons? Now you could sit there and say you like Shamar Stewart. That's fine. With the first round pick and you attempting to win last year with deficiencies, you shouldn't like your first round pick. You should love your first round pick. And I am tired of incentivizing losing. I am tired of watching teams this season like the Dolphins and the Browns and the Titans and the 0-6 New York freaking Jets. How many more times are we going to send quarterbacks and super talented individuals out of college to the worst situations? That doesn't make any sense. If you go to school to be a doctor and you are at the top of your class, they're not going to say, hey, you're the number 1 doctor coming out of this school. We're going to send you to the worst hospital in the entire country, and you got to work your way up. No, it doesn't work that way. The best doctors that graduate the top of their class go to the top medical institutions, and that's how it should be. And that's how this should be. And, I look at this and I see how these guys have been failed. I see how Trevor Lawrence was failed. Trevor Lawrence goes to a bad Jacksonville Jaguars organization, a bad organization who I love Urban Meyer, but my goodness, that was a train wreck. Frank Reich, Bryce Young, his coach gets fired. Carolina is constantly looking and blaming the quarterback, blaming the coaches. They're just poorly run. The Browns are poorly run. The Bengals, they're not constantly looking for a quarterback, but they're just poorly run because they can't get anything else. The Titans are poorly run. And this cycle is going to continue. The top quarterbacks in the draft will go to the Jets, and it'll continue. Sam Darnold, is thriving right now in the NFL. He did it last year with the Vikings. I said I need to see it more than one season to believe in him again. I'm believing in it. He's looking very, very good in Seattle. Right? Baker Mayfield. He goes to Cleveland. I love Baker Mayfield. I love Cleveland. I also know it didn't work in Cleveland, but why is it working now? Because he's not in Cleveland, and he's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a very good organization. They draft well. I mean, they lost Tom Brady and didn't really miss a beat. Are they a Super Bowl contender? They are now. But they didn't, you know what I mean? Like they restructured and they rebuilt quickly. They're a well-run organization. I think that you need to reward winning to prevent the Trevor Lawrences of the world from, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be a generational talent. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to, I remember after he won that national championship as a freshman, a true freshman. Remember, Kelly Bryant was the starting quarterback. They were 4-0 at Clemson that year. They had just made the playoffs the year before. They were undefeated. Top 5 team in the country. They benched Kelly Bryant because they just knew that Trevor Lawrence was better, and he went on to win a national championship. They said he would have been the number 1 pick that year coming out, and he had to play 2 more. That's how promising of a talent he was. He comes out to Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is just a very underwhelming NFL quarterback because he's in Jacksonville. Bryce Young looked unbelievable at Alabama. Maybe he's better in San Francisco or elsewhere if he's in a better system and with a better coach and just a better structure. Bryce Young is drowning over in Carolina. Although Carolina winning some games right now, but I don't think anyone's sold on Bryce Young. Caleb Williams has been a disaster. Now, to be fair, I think Caleb Williams is overrated. I never bought into the Caleb Williams thing. I think he's a goofball. I'm not a big Caleb Williams guy to begin with, but Caleb Williams was another generational talent. And look, we're doing this thing where, I don't understand this. I've never heard of this. Caleb Williams is the only quarterback I know that got 2 rookie seasons because, that was so bad his first year that this is technically his real rookie season. No, You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work that way, but it works that way for him. And Cam Ward, it's going to be viewed as the same way. Stop sending these top quarterback prospects out of college to the worst situations possible and expecting them to work magic. What Joe Burrow did in Cincinnati, as much as I bag on him, it's unbelievable what Joe Burrow technically was able to do at Cincinnati. When you really think about it, they were a 2-win team. You get Joe Burrow, you win 4 games, and they would have probably won more, but he goes out in week 11 against the Washington football team at the time. And then they win only 4 games that year. They get Jamar Chase, right? But like the way that they turned that around, that doesn't happen often, especially a bad organization like Cincinnati. That doesn't happen often. That's the exception to the rule, because every other story is the Trevor Lawrences, the Bryce Youngs, the Caleb Williams, and this year's version of Cam Ward. Ron, thank you. Well, Daniel Jones wasn't the number 1 overall pick, but yes, taking the best quarterbacks in college and sending them to the worst situations possible, and then wondering why aren't these guys working out in the NFL? They look so promising in college. Stop sending them to the worst situations possible. In my opinion, as I've stated before, and I know I've got ripped for this take many, many times, I think that the way the draft should work, I think that the number 1 pick should go to the first team that missed the playoffs. The first team that missed the playoffs is the team that should get the number 1 overall pick. And the reason is, if you want to look back at last year, that team was, I said it was the Bengals last year. It was the Seahawks, but it doesn't matter. So the Seattle Seahawks would have had the number 1 overall pick last year. And guess what? Seattle would get Cam Ward. Seattle would have had Cam Ward. That would have been phenomenal for Cam Ward to go to Seattle with that well-run organization, as opposed to the dumpster fire that's over in Tennessee. And how much better would Cam Ward be? Now, Seattle went out and paid for Sam Darnold, and Seattle's solid this season. That's great, but they wouldn't have had to pay that money because they would have drafted Cam Ward, and they would have been rewarded for trying to compete and win last year. Seattle won 10 games last year and missed the playoffs last year. That's crazy. They won 10 games last year and missed the playoffs last year. Cincinnati, a 9-8 team, should have had the number 2 overall pick last year. Now, they wouldn't have gone quarterback, obviously, but you could have, they could have gone so many different directions. They could have ended up, of course, with the Travis Hunter. They could have ended up, with any of those talented defensive players instead of, well, congrats on trying to make the playoffs, Cincinnati. And, we're going to punish you for trying to win all season long instead of tanking like these other losers. Here's Shamar Stewart. And to counter this one more time, because I know you guys are saying, well, then how does the bottom of the league get better? Well, you have to spend money. You would have to spend money. You may not be able to spend enough money to compete for a Super Bowl, but you could spend enough money to compete for us to be a 7 to 8 win team, which would then in essence compete to be getting top draft picks. That way, the bottom of the league is spending money to compete to get the top draft picks. The middle of the league is trying to compete to get to that next level to be a Super Bowl contender. And then your Super Bowl contenders are competing to be Super Bowl contenders. It's as simple as that. If you put out an incentivization program that everyone is then trying to win, because the more you win, the more you're rewarded, then we're not dealing with these long rebuilds where teams are deciding now that they want to start losing for 2 years from now. That's insane. So seeing that and seeing how many of these quarterbacks have failed because of the failure situations they've been put in, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it's not going to change. The draft isn't broken. The draft gets great ratings. I love the draft, but what I also hate is seeing the top draft picks in the country go to the worst situations. As a Browns fan, I want a really good college quarterback to come to Cleveland, but I'm not naive I'm not naive enough to actually think that it's guaranteed, that it's definitely going to work, because we technically saw it work and it not work, and seeing the guy that work elsewhere because it couldn't work in Cleveland apparently, which I've defended them on, so I'm not going to rip them too much for that, but it's the most Cleveland thing ever. And it's the most Jets thing ever that Sam Darnold is leading playoff. He 14-2 or whatever the record was, 14-3 with the Vikings. The Seahawks are off to a great start. Sam Darnold with the Jets, not good. Sam Darnold with the Panthers, not good. Baker Mayfield with the Browns, solid, showed promise, but not a good situation. Baker Mayfield with Carolina, not good. Baker in LA looked good. Baker with the Buccaneers, Super Bowl contender. Sam Darnold with the Vikings, Super Bowl contender. Sam Darnold with the Seahawks, playoff contender. The Jets, the Browns, the Panthers, these organizations suck, and it's exhausting. Stop rewarding the losers. The Browns should be panicking right now because of all the losing that they're doing. But instead, they're saying, yeah, well, we're losing a lot, but man, think of the draft pick we're going to get. That is insanely stupid. I'm not saying the Browns are stupid. I'm saying that the setup is stupid. And then I'm looking at teams like the Bengals right now are trying to decide, do we keep competing and keep trying to fight, keep trying to win games? Now we should just fold right now so that we can get a better draft pick. Now, half your league is deciding at the trade deadline, yeah, we give up on the season. So now Bengals fans, you're going to check after Thursday, you will be done with this team. You will be done. You'll watch because you're a fan, but you're not going to be in love with the team. It's not going to be, oh my God, I can't go to my friend's kid's birthday party because the Bengals are on that day. You're going to be like, thank God for that friend's kid's birthday party that day, so I don't have to watch this mess. And you have to deal with that for all of November and all of December. 'Tis the season to be jolly. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. I'll catch up on the comments in the chat coming up. We'll step away for a few moments. We'll pick up with this conversation, jump into college football as well. A lot more to get into. The Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.
Show right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. winning words at wingam.com. I guess you could say it pays to listen to the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show, weekdays from noon to 5 p.m. right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
It pays to listen to the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show weekdays from noon to 5. Be listening from noon to 5 every day during the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show. 2 times an hour, you'll have a chance to win $2,000 on our show. We'll give it to you once live on the show, and then during one of the commercial breaks. So make sure you're listening for that winning word throughout the day. So for this hour, head to wingam.com and enter the word movie. Enter movie at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. Enter the winning word movie at wingam.com and be listening for the second word coming up here around the corner. We'll get to that coming up here shortly, so keep that in mind. But the winning word movie, enter that at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. So keep that in mind. All right. Let's see. 937-518-1410. That's the number to call and jump in on the conversation. So we were just talking right now about, it's wild. The graphic that popped up on social media this week. I think a lot of you saw it just with Callahan, the former offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, who went to the Titans to be their head coach. Didn't last very long. He was fired yesterday, and that makes it for the fourth time in the last 5 years. The quarterback that was taken number 1 overall has now seen their head coach fired during their rookie season. Trevor Lawrence watched Urban Meyer get fired in the middle of his rookie year. Bryce Young watched Frank Reich get fired in the middle of his rookie year. Caleb Williams with Matt Eberflus, and now you could add Cam Ward to the list with Brian Callahan being fired. And it's just it's a wonder why. And then it's like it sets these guys up to just be ridiculed by media, smaller media like me, national media like ESPN and others. It's like Trevor Lawrence, man, he's not worth that money. He's not worth that money. Well, think about like college. I mean, how fantastic he was. The NFL, that's supposed to be where you go for your talent to blossom, and then to have it just completely railroaded by a bad organization, a bad coaching hire, a bad decision in general. Like it just didn't work with Urban Meyer. Didn't work with Frank Reich and Bryce Young. Matt Eberflus was not the right guy. And by the way, it's not like, oh man, it's unfortunate that they had the wrong coach in place, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are known for their losing and bad decisions, right? You look at the Panthers. Jake Delhomme, that was the last time that team was any damn good. Jake Delhomme, right? The best thing about the Panthers since Jake Delhomme was Christian McCaffrey, and all of his success has come with the 49ers getting to a Super Bowl. If he could stay healthy, that'd be great. Right? The Bears, we know that is probably one of the most horrendous franchises when it comes to the history of the quarterback position. They have never got it right. And then the Titans, the last time I talked about a Titans quarterback is when I watched that Steve McNair documentary on Netflix. And I'm not making light of what happened to Steve McNair, by the way, but the last time anyone gave a rip about the Titans quarterback is when that documentary came out. Like, that's how bad these situations are. And guess what? The top of the draft, unless the Bears are for real, we'll find out. They got the big win this week, but can they sustain it? Is Caleb Williams and the Bears, is that going to work? Who knows? But if not, the Bears will be right back picking in the top 10, as will the Titans, as will the Panthers, the Jaguars, and that's good if you're a Browns fan. I hope Jacksonville's picking in the top 10, but Cleveland and Cincinnati, your usual cast of characters. The top 10, it's always the same teams over and over and over in some variation. The Bengals have done a good job of staying out of that, in recent history, but, the fact that they're going to be right back there again, no surprise. That's just bad organizations constantly find themselves in that position to be picking in the top 10 over and over and over. And guess what? We take the worst run organizations in football who always find themselves in that position, and we take the most elite talent in college. They work their asses off to become the most elite athletes in college to be rewarded by, yes, getting to the NFL. It's a privilege. It is. But at a certain point, don't you think as a league, you would like to maybe change up the setup to maybe allow these talents coming in to flourish a little more? to not just be good individual performers as a rookie, but to be good individual performers that's contributing towards a playoff push and not having to, I mean, this is their rookie year. It's Cam Ward's rookie year, but we're going to do the same thing with him that we did with Caleb Williams, where next year it's going to be, well, next year will really count as his rookie year because now he has a good head coach. Like the garbage I'm hearing with Caleb Williams. Whatever, man. The league, the NFL is damn near perfect. It's very well run. Ratings are through the roof. It's not like, some of these changes, are they drastically needed? If ratings were plummeting, I would say yes. But even with ratings being great, it could always be better. You know what I mean? Like, I just think Cam Ward in Seattle on a good team would have been better. I think that when you have a team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, imagine if they would have ended up with Travis Hunter picking number 2 in the draft last year. Not because they were the second worst team in football, but because they were the second team out of the playoffs. So last year, and this is how I've said it, if you missed the last part of the show, and I've always got ripped for this take, I hate the way we do the draft in all sports. Stop rewarding the losing organizations. Stop saying, hey, good job on being an embarrassment. Here's a great player for you. Can't wait to watch you screw that up so we can relocate that player to the good teams. Let's just cut out the middlemen and send them right there. So the first, the Seahawks won 10 games last year and missed the playoffs. The Bengals won 9 games last year, missed the playoffs. That should have been your number 1 and number 2 pick last year. Cam Ward would have gone to Seattle. They wouldn't have had to spend money on Sam Darnold. And then, of course, the Bengals could have got Travis Hunter, which I still think would have been a bad pick. Not because I'm anti-Bengals, although I am. I just think Travis Hunter is very overrated. I think it's great that he could play and start a lot on both sides. But, hey, the only thing you're getting is, man, I can't believe our average wide receiver could play average secondary. That's pretty cool. Whatever. But anyways, I've been on this for a minute. We can move on. But Chad Kinser weighs in. Chad says, maybe the NFL will change things up if more kids had the what. Maybe the NFL will change things if more kids had the whats like Phillip Rivers did. Yeah. And then those kids are put in a bad spot. Like if they try to push their weight around. I mean, look, Shedeur Sanders tried to push his weight around and that has stained him. Now, he wasn't good enough to push his weight around. He thinks he's God's gift to earth, but he's not good enough to act like, I mean, it sounds crazy, but like he's no Phillip Rivers. Right. And actually, that doesn't sound crazy. It's actually a very realistic statement. He was no Phillip Rivers in college. He was exciting in college. I don't think he was elite in college. Shedeur Sanders was not elite in college. He was exciting in college. I said this yesterday. We're going to get into the college thing again and basically pick up where we did yesterday at the same time of the show. My bad. But, Curt Cignetti, everything that Curt Cignetti is who they try to tell you Deion is. That Deion came to Colorado and resurrected that program. Resurrected them to what? They used to be really, really bad. Now they're not as bad because Indiana is the losingest program in the history of college football. And they're the number 3 team in the country right now. To me, that really is a guy coming in and resurrecting a program and putting them on the map. Colorado is just a butt end of jokes now because they retired a quarterback who finished 1 game above 500 with 0 wins against top 25 teams. That's my quarterback. Backup quarterback. Besides the point. Getting off task here. My apologies. My ADD is pretty bad today, but that's okay. That's okay. It's 4:15 here in the Miami Valley. Make sure you head to wingam.com and enter the winning word movie, MOVIE. Yes, I know you know how to spell, but I don't mean to question your intelligence. Maybe it's me just reassuring that I know how to spell it, but enter the winning word movie at wingam.com. We'll have a new winning word coming up at 4:30. So for that word, you need to get that word to wingam.com right now and enter it movie. And I'll have another word for you coming up here at 4:30. So keep that in mind. But let's switch over to college football. And we'll step away for a few moments and we'll do this now. As Ron Howard says, by the way, look at Mike Vrabel now. The Titans fired him. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. Not only did the Titans fire him because they thought that they could do better, the Browns had him just doing random coaching assignment stuff, buried on that coaching staff. And he left and turned the Patriots around. He's going to turn the Patriots around before the Browns turn around. And there was another thing that Chad said too, about this coming up weekend or this Thursday night game with the Bengals. And I can't find it now. My bad. But basically saying, yes, that if the Bengals lose on Thursday, they should trade Trey Hendrickson and they should fire Zach Taylor. We know how the Bengals operate. We know they will not fire Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor will not be fired in the middle of the season. But we also know how the Bengals operate. I'm not convinced that Hendrickson will be traded if they lose on Thursday either. So we'll keep an eye on that, no doubt. All right, now I promise. College football when we come back.
The Justin Kinner Show. Right here on 14.
837-936-0325.
Head to wingam.com, enter the winning word movie for your chance to win $2,000. We'll have another word. We'll have another separate word and another chance for you to win $2,000 coming up here in just about 10 minutes. So keep it locked in here for your chance to win $2,000 all week long. Again, it pays to listen to the Rich Eisen Show and the Justin Kinner Show every day, all the way through Friday from noon to 5, the 3 hours with the Rich Eisen, the couple hours with my show. Be listening throughout those hours, and you'll have multiple chances throughout each hour to win $2,000. So keep an ear out for those. So there's that. Enter movie at wingam.com. All right. We talked about this yesterday on yesterday's show, but the top 25, the AP top 25, week 8, there you go. There you have it. 5 of the top 10 coming out of the AC or coming out of the SEC. But the Big Ten have 3 in the first 8, and the SEC has 5 of the 10. And Ohio State coming in at number 1, Indiana coming in at number 3, with Miami sandwiched in between out of the ACC. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama, 3 straight SEC teams right there at 4, 5, and 6. Texas Tech coming in at number 7, Oregon at 8, Georgia and LSU coming in at 9 and 10. Now, Nebraska coming in at number 25, with the Bearcats cracking the top 25 with their win last week over Oklahoma State. So I'm sorry, Iowa State. So either way, they come out with the big win last Saturday. Talking about the Bearcats. So Ohio State getting set to take on Wisconsin this coming up Saturday. That'll be a 3:30 kick. 2 p.m. will be when pregame coverage does begin. By the way, Keith Byers and I will be live in Kettering at Submarine House for our pregame tailgate if you want to stop on out and hang out with us as we stay throughout kickoff. Of course, we'll be doing that on Saturday ahead of their matchup with Wisconsin. But obviously, of all the good teams in the Big Ten, Wisconsin's not one of those. You're taking a look at this top 25 right here. A lot of interesting teams on this list, and to this day, it just feels weird seeing that Indiana has slowly turned into a football school. Now they're a basketball school. They're always going to be viewed as a basketball school, but Kurt Signetti is doing everything in his power to make sure that you view them as something different. Now, with the Penn State job that opened up, okay, and by the way, Jason Fitz was supposed to be on today's show. He's going to be on with us tomorrow. They had some taping stuff that they had to do today, so he shot me a note. He'll be on with us tomorrow. And we'll talk about the James Franklin stuff with him. I do know that Jay Paterno, the brother or the son of Joe Paterno, and it used to be on Joe Pa's staff. He's going to be on with us this week as well, as we kind of talk about what the heck happened with Penn State. And while we're on that, let's just briefly touch on that too, because I know everyone's been talking about that. Man, college football, things turn around, and they turn around quickly. And I thought it turned around quickly from an example of Ryan Day. I mean, if you think like last Thanksgiving, everyone wanted him gone. Actually, a lot of people wanted him gone last Thanksgiving, and that was before the Michigan game. And then the Michigan game happened, and then everyone wanted him gone. There were literally Ohio State fans that said that they just want Ohio State to opt out of the playoff because they don't want to watch another embarrassment from Ohio State. That's how crazy fans were, and that's how down people were on Ryan Day. And that was Thanksgiving Day week. And not even 5 weeks later, Ryan Day's seat is no longer hot. Ryan Day's job is no longer being questioned. Ryan Day is honestly being discussed as the best coach in college football right now. That's how quickly things change. Then in a 15-day period, you're the number 3 team in the country. You have a lead over a top 10 team on the road, and you lose in overtime. And 15 days later, not only are you not ranked anymore, you're no longer a playoff contender, and you are now officially fired. Hello, James Franklin. Things move quickly, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Assuming that every team is going to be there at the end is wild. Assuming that teams that don't have a shot is also wild. Nobody gave Ohio State a chance to win that national title last year, including Buckeye fans. I didn't think that they could do it. But things change in a hurry. College football has become so much more unpredictable now, and I love it. I love it. It has become so much more unpredictable. I mean, look at this top 25 as we sit here right now. I mean, I'm seeing the likes of Georgia Tech. I'm seeing Indiana. I mean, Miami is a brand, right? But even seeing Miami at number 2 is kind of wild. The U is back. Seeing Miami at 2 is strange to me, but that's where we're at right now. Miami's at 2. They're unpredictable. Indiana's at 3. Right? Like what is going on? Penn State, who was a national championship contender coming into the season. Texas, who was a national championship contender coming into the season. Now both of those teams we know Penn State's not making the playoff anymore. Texas might not make the playoff. And Texas still has some tough games coming up, so they're probably not making the playoff. But to see teams, of course, like Georgia Tech, like Vanderbilt, like Indiana, like to see, South Florida, to see the amount of teams that are in the conversation in the top 15 alone is crazy to me. I love how unpredictable college football has become. I really do. I did not think that. I thought football would be very hard to really alter the powers. It hasn't. It's almost weakened the powers and brought up some other programs. Now, Vanderbilt's not a national title contender. I don't think Indiana's a national title contender. Let's just be clear. But I also didn't think that they had a chance to be the number 3 team in the country 8 weeks into the season. I didn't think that I thought there was a good chance James Franklin could have been unemployed after this upcoming season. There's no way in hell I thought that he would be unemployed before we even get to November. Guys, James Franklin has been fired, and we're not even in November. Penn State has 3 losses. James Franklin is fired. The national championship contending Penn State Nittany Lions, their season is toast, and it's not even November. Things in college football, they move fast now. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Kalen DeBoer, we were waiting for some rich Alabama donor to just pay for the buyout after that loss to Florida State. Bad loss, by the way. Not a good one. And it started to look like an okay, forgivable loss for a minute, but it's still bad. Everyone wanted him gone. Alabama has been very, very good ever since. Things move quickly in college football. It's just wild to me when it's all said and done, the narratives that constantly are forced upon us. Arch Manning, by the way, is in every underwear commercial. He's in every car commercial. He's in every random commercial that you could think of with all his endorsements and NIL money. He has everything. Never would have guessed coming into the year that he'd be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the SEC. But statistically, he's a bottom 5 quarterback in the SEC. Never would have saw that coming. Things move quickly. It also would not surprise me if all of a sudden something clicks, Texas's offense takes off, and he does look the part. Things move quickly in college football. Curt Cignetti leaves James Madison, brings James Madison players with them to Indiana. And I said this on yesterday's show, the whole knock on Curt Cignetti, well, yeah, but he brought a lot of good players with him. He brought James Madison players with him. It's not like he left Alabama to go coach at Indiana and brought Alabama players with him. He left James Madison and competed in the Big Ten, made the playoffs out of the Big Ten with James Madison players. Yeah, I think that guy can coach. I think that guy can evaluate talent. Indiana has 4 4. They have Indiana this season, 0 5 stars, 4 4 stars. The rest are 3 and no stars. But the only number that matters is the fact that they are the number 3 team in the country right now. They're undefeated, and they just went on the road to face the then number 3 team in the country and beat them by double digits at their place. Things move quick. College football is fun. This is fun. It's always been fun, and I was so convinced that the 14 playoff era was the best era. I thought that was it. I thought that changing it would be dumb. No, I'm actually mad that it took so long. Imagine how much more entertaining college football would have been had they made this sooner. But I have no clue. Like, we think we know, just like any sport, any season. So Ohio State, yes, national championship favorite. Miami's a national. We could see Ohio State and Miami in the national championship. How cool would that be? But there's also, the fact that like during the 14 playoff era, they struggled to put 4 quality teams in the playoff. People kept saying, oh man, they didn't get the right teams in. I'm like, I don't know how you could say that. There were some years where I'm like, there's 2 really good teams and we're throwing a bone to teams 3 and 4. We're throwing a bone to TCU. Hey, Bearcats, I know this is a great opportunity and experience for you, but my goodness, that's a bad thing that they're in. You knew who the championship contenders were. You knew who the championship was going to be. We know Ohio State's good enough to get there. We know Miami's good enough to get there. But guys, it very well could. It could be Tennessee, who's number 11 in the country, and Oregon, who's number 8 in the national championship game. Texas Tech could be going up against Texas A&M in the national championship game. We don't know. Georgia Tech could all of a sudden find themselves there. I doubt Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech ain't going to do that. But the bottom line is we have no idea. You think you know. But college football has proven to be so damn unpredictable. And the teams that we think are good now could end up being horrible 2 or 3 weeks from now. We never once would have thought in a million years that Penn State would have lost to winless UCLA. Never would have thought in a million years that national championship contending Penn State would lose to Northwestern. But that's where we're at. I was criticizing James Franklin because he wasn't able to win the big games. He wasn't able to beat the Ohio States and the big teams. And the ironic part is he ended up losing his job because he couldn't beat UCLA and Northwestern. Woofa. Woofa. All right, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Head to wingam.com. Enter the word party, Party. Enter the winning word party at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. It pays to listen to the Justin Kinner Show. It pays to listen to the Rich Eisen Show. Be listening 2 times an hour all the way for the rest of the week. Okay, we're doing it again this week. All week long, be listening for those 2 words every hour. We'll be telling you when to go enter those, okay? So you can know movie was the word to start the hour. That word's done. Party is the new word. Enter party at wingam.com for your chance to win $2,000. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits.